My 3D models were hard stuck until I did this. Number 1. For the biggest and fastest returns on your 3D modeling for the least effort, use references. Professional references are your best friend because they eliminate your two biggest enemies, ego and guesswork. So grab something as close as you can to your target art style because it will act both as your blueprint and a reality check. But let me be specific because a lot of people can harmfully misunderstand this. If we're talking about character modeling, you might think that using references means to get 2D front and side references, and then start tracing points over the overlay. And that would actually be the opposite of what I'll suggest to you today. I've been there with overlaying, but my progress only ramped up when I 1. Relied on 3D references instead since they contain technical 3D specific data, which 2D references don't have, and 2. I stopped tracing entirely. What to do instead of tracing, I'll get into that with a whole section later in this video. Pro 3D anime models are advancing rapidly nowadays, but don't let that intimidate you. It's actually the best time to learn because you can essentially piggyback off of them if you know how to reference and extract knowledge from their models, which most devs provide for free so you don't even have to rip them. Number 2, solve, don't reset. And this one's for my chronic restarters. I see a lot of fellow 3D artists getting stuck on, for example, a face mesh. Let's say they didn't like the way they did their eyes or their mouth, so they start the mesh from the beginning. If you hit a roadblock, rather than restarting, try to solve the problem that's blocking you and push through it, right? If the eyes were the problem and you don't like the way you did it, then fix how you did it. And if you don't know how, then back to tip 1, references. Because logically, if you restart the entire face now, you're gonna get reps into something you've already done before, and then the roadblock is still gonna be there because you didn't solve it the first time, no matter how many times you restart. Intentional improvement will always beat raw repetition. And I know this kind of sounds like, oh, you failed? Just succeed instead. But it's actually one of the most common questions I've seen. Should I restart? And then you look at that person's work and it's completely salvageable if they just tweak the part that went wrong instead of starting all over. Okay, let's say you did put in the effort, but you still think you failed. Let's say you still don't get the eyes perfect. Even so, I suggest push through and complete the rest of the face. Why? Because number 3, skills multiply with integration. So back to our example, when you complete a base face mesh for the first time, you'll probably have no idea if it's good. In fact, it's gonna look weird and alien-like even if it's correct because it lacks the full context. Only after the other features are added will you get a better picture of what to tweak and how everything fits together. So the workflow I suggest is get all the parts meshed out first and then do your big visual tweak since you can see how it all works together now. Thinking more big picture, this is why pushing to complete something end to end is good. 3D is a wide range of skills, and each time you learn a new skill, it can shed light on and multiply what you already know. So try to see if you have untapped adjacent skills that could level you up with very little investment. For example, drawing 2D. Some of you might originally be 2D artists like me that escaped because you're just not good with the pen. But the reason I thought it might be good to pick back up is even just for outfit sketches. Often I get stuck after completing base body meshes because I haven't really planned out the character's outfit that much. And it would be so much faster to sketch potential designs rather than to block them out in 3D. An efficient way to achieve this would be with the help of today's sponsor, Skillshare. With a wide range of classes taught by professionals, Skillshare can help you acquire almost any skill that you feel is relevant to your goals, making them the go-to place for learning or reconnecting with your creativity. In minutes, I was able to find one for drawing outfit sketches just like I mentioned, called Drawing People in Cute Outfits Inspired by Fashion Illustration. Here's my attempt after taking the class. One other thing you'd love about their platform is that you can easily specify programs that you want to learn about. Then after picking a class, all of its topics are conveniently laid out for you over here on the side if there's something specific you want to jump to.
Here's the most efficient pruning technique you're going to use for the rest of your life. Hit Control plus Shift plus left bracket, and this will delete everything from the start of your computer playhead.
Okay, wow, I did not even know you could do that. And just like that, I'll hopefully be able to pump out more videos for you guys. As you just saw, Skillshare is super streamlined for you to start compounding your skills today, so don't hesitate. The first 500 people to click the link in the description or scan this QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. The next tip I have for you is use rapid iteration techniques. Use workflows that keep your model flexible rather than locking them into design choices, and allow you to quickly test variations. For example, don't finalize colors into textures until you absolutely have to, so that you can refine the palette over time. This is especially good when you're learning color theory and figuring out which colors work together in your design. I applied this to my eye design using masks in the free UQ add-on to test hundreds of different eye palettes in minutes. Stay tuned for the new eye workflow in just a few days. And of course, you can always achieve the same thing with a bunch of temp materials. Using the same concept but for topology, you can utilize shape keys to rapidly iterate form. This is useful for areas like the face, and how it works is you create different shape keys to tweak different parts of the face and play with them like they're character creation sliders, which is kind of ironic because it's the actual mechanism in most character slider systems. Instead, you're just using it in the actual design phase. It's good for training your taste because you can make a sculpt tweak and you can fine tune to any point in the slider in case the optimal tweak was anywhere in between, and then you combine different tweak shape keys, which multiply into technically millions of possibilities rather than just one, and because of its non-destructive nature, you can undo all of the changes at any time, and at the point you want to lock in the changes, you can simply do new shape key from mix, and then make it your new basis shape key. This is much more efficient than doing sculpt undo, or having to even go back to an old save file. And yes, of course, you can always use it for the body too. Okay, so the reason today's tips are more geared toward the aesthetic side of things is because I've realized that a lot of 3D artists are bottlenecked not by their technical skill, which is usually already solid, but rather their visual taste. In other words, they don't struggle with creating topology, but they do struggle with making that topology look good. And that's something that can definitely be trained. Just don't forget that the word art is half of 3D art, so don't neglect it. I think that 3D modeling psychologically biases us to overlook the artistic aspect sometimes. A big reason why is that 3D is relatively more time consuming than other art forms, leaving more room for sunk cost bias. Or in other words, I spent a lot of time on this, therefore it must be good. And also for a lot of people, 3D is perceived as intimidating and difficult, leading to effort justification. Essentially when you think to yourself, man, this was so difficult, and then your brain tricks itself into viewing your work in a more positive light because your ego is telling you there's no way you worked that hard and the result was bad. There's also functional fixedness where your mesh is extremely optimized and mechanically amazing, but it causes you to overlook the aesthetic side of things. Good topology doesn't necessarily mean good art. I've seen amazing looking models built on topology that is not ideal, and I've also seen meshes that look technically flawless but are not appealing outside of the wireframe view. Both the topology and the design are important. Now, before I go on and name all the Psych 101 biases that are related to art and 3D modeling, what's more important today is how to train the often neglected art side of modeling and avoid bias traps. For this, you'll need to have your work judged externally so it's not limited to your biased perspective. Then you need to set measurable goals as targets to improve based on that feedback. Of course, not everyone wants to interact with other humans, and I understand that. So your next best bet is again to use professional references. They can serve as your external standard and your target as long as you mimic them as closely as possible. When you do a recreation, you train your brain to bridge the gap between your work and the targets, and it challenges you to see and work in ways you've never done before, which breaks those self-imposed limitations that you've subconsciously set for yourself. Like how we did our face mesh remake with one calibration at a time, such as it's too dense. Okay, so the solution is dissolve some edges. And then the mouth area doesn't flow towards the socket like in the reference. Okay, let's figure out how to reroute it. It's a process of continually spotting specific differences and using problem solving to reconcile those differences, until eventually your recreation becomes really close to the target reference. And if you apply this, then before you know it, you'll have a deep skill set to manipulate your models into exactly how you want them to look. And to further maximize this, I highly recommend having the reference somewhere on the side rather than overlaid. I mentioned earlier that I don't recommend tracing, and it's not because I think tracing is dishonorable or I think that you're a noob if you trace. It's simply because tracing, when your goal is to improve, is actually counterproductive because you're robbing yourself of opportunities to train your spatial awareness and calibration skills. And a quick word too on 2D references. It's uncommon to find really good 2D reference sheets. They vary in lens distortion, quality, the artist sometimes does not have consistent proportions between the front and side view, among various other issues. But the real problem is the trap that 3D artists treat their 2D reference sheets like the holy grail, having it be the end-all be-all and following it super closely, when at most, it should just be a starting point. You shouldn't limit yourself to your references, but aim to build something even greater, which I believe 3D has the capability to do. A good alternate reference workflow is to do a quick 5-minute review and mark down everything that's helpful onto one sheet. This goes a long way and helps with your attention to detail. Then have that along with your 3D references off to the side on a secondary monitor so you can rotate them around whenever you need to and take in information on all angles. And for those of you that feel it's absolutely too difficult to work without tracing, please try this in-between method first. Instead of overlaying and tracing directly, overlay your work onto the target mesh, scale them to the same size, check for differences, then try to memorize those differences, move the mesh back away, then try to make the tweaks from memory. Keep repeating this until you reach your target. When you get better at this and more confident, you can remove the overlaying part entirely and be able to spot differences at a glance. Lastly, have you ever caught yourself aimlessly spinning and rotating your model to the point where you have Blender open for about half an hour, yet you accomplish absolutely nothing of value? Well, there might be a bigger underlying problem, which is that you don't have direction. You don't know what the next steps to take with your model is. This is common because, again, 3D modeling is just way too many different things packed into one. And with big, complicated projects, it's easy to lose track of all your goals or even lose motivation and consistency in doing the work. When this happens, it's time to set some micro goals. Micro goals are very small, specific, and most importantly, actionable, as opposed to a really generic goal such as, I'm gonna finish my model in 2 weeks. That's something that doesn't help with the planning or execution at all. So get more specific. I'm gonna finish the legs today. You can get even more specific than that. So micro level would be, I'm gonna finish my hands texture. I'm gonna join the asymmetrical strands on my hair mesh, or I'll finish an expression shape key. Any of these things can be done in 5 to 30 minutes, and that's not only easier to squeeze in if you have a busy schedule, but it's also mentally a lot less intimidating, increasing the chances that you'll actually do it. And when you actually finish anything, you'll get a small hit of dopamine, and you'll be motivated to do even more. So this will build momentum and actually help you finish your entire work in the long run. So one way I've set this up within Blender itself so that it's easy and convenient is to just create some simple marker meshes, have it point to things that you want to work on in your project, and just name them the actual tasks that you want to do in that area, like texturing the jacket, adding a design element to the thigh area, so that you can easily remember what it is that you have to do. I also have a very simple color coding system where basically anything that's red has to be done before things that are green, and just get a few of them. You don't have to get the entire list of everything that you ever have to do for the project, because that can get messy and demotivating real fast. And then of course, as you finish things, you can just delete the markers. Then once everything is done, you can reassess and create a new batch of markers that you have to do. And hopefully that helps you get deeper into your projects. And as we mentioned, the deeper you get, the more your skills compound, which is how you can get more advanced in 3D modeling. And well, that's everything for today. I haven't done this video format in a while. Recently it's been mostly tutorials and model reviews, but I realize my tutorials are limited to procedures and don't really get into some of the important concepts that need to be in mind when modeling. So I may do more of these style videos in order to supplement that. Check out my tutorials if you want. I have an ongoing series about reverse engineering 3D models from popular 3D anime games. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please drop some engagement if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you, my goats, in the next upload. As always, have yourselves a good night.